Hello everyone, this is the Urban Omnist, and once again I'm apologizing for having been so long and putting out another video. I actually do have a bunch of videos I'm wanting to do and wanting to put out, but considering what has been happening over the last couple of weeks, I felt very strongly like I needed to make some sort of a statement, and it was hard to know what to say. I try extremely hard not to be political on this show, to be as non-political as humanly possible. But sometimes there's no way to get away from it, at least partially. Um, any of us who have seen the video or read up on what happened to George Floyd are no doubt horrified. When something like this happens, it's it. I think it resonates with anyone who's human, or at least I certainly hope it does. And I believe it does. I don't think anyone is watching this and going, "Wow, that was a great thing." I don't think anyone. I don't think even someone that we might consider a racist or a white supremacist could probably even see this and not be horrified. At the same time, I try incredibly hard not to have knee-jerk reactions to anything. And when it comes to things involving racism, I'm sure anyone who has watched my video for long enough knows uh, what a difficult subject that is for me. You know, how deeply it bothers me, I guess is the best way of putting it. And so when something like this happens, I of course have a tendency to get very angry. Or maybe angry isn't the right word. I get very sad. I've tried very hard in my life to turn my own emotions into something more positive. And in this case, I think sadness is better than anger. Because I think sadness is more positively motivating than anger. We do stupid things when we're angry. And I know because I've done that a lot in my life. You know, if someone has done something to me and I've popped off at them, I've yelled at them, I've attacked verbally, and nothing good ever comes of it. In my opinion, that's not how you affect good change. So I try to lead by example. And I don't always accomplish it, but I try. There probably aren't any of us who haven't had bad reactions to cops at some point in our life, whether it's just being pulled over by a speeding ticket or some other experience where somehow it's gone badly with a police officer. Because let's face it, most of the time when police officers pull us over or have something to do with us, it's very often something negative. It's often because we've done something wrong, or sometimes because we've done nothing wrong. And the way I felt about police officers, I've found, varies depending on the police officer and depending on the situation. Working in security for years, I came to know a lot of police officers. And came to realize, if nothing else, that police officers are just people, like anyone else, doing a job. Some of them do it very well, and some of them do it very, very poorly. And probably no one is more aware of that than other police officers. But no matter what, we tend to react to a group of people, whether they be police officers or people of a certain race, people of a particular occupation, people from a particular country. We react to everyone the way that we feel about the people we've met from that group. I once had a police officer put me in the back of his squad car for no reason. I I didn't have my driver's license because I'd left it at the bank, and so he hustled me into his squad car, uh, and I probably sat there for half an hour before he finally let me out, and we realized that I hadn't done anything wrong, and that I was who I said I was, and sort of things that are hard to believe even happen in America today, but they do happen. At the same time, I cannot imagine what it would be like to be a police officer. Um, I'm a very sensitive person, and I don't think I could take it. I, I don't think I could take busting down a door with five guys behind me, not knowing what was on the other side of that door. If it was a woman with a baby or some guy with a shotgun, I can't imagine pulling someone over at 2 in the morning and walking up to their car and not knowing if they were going to shoot me or not. Uh, it would be terrifying. Not knowing if I might die. Um, Most police officers never even draw their gun. Most police officers never get shot at. Most police officers don't encounter the horrible things that some police officers do, and most people don't encounter those things with police. Have situations that horrible with a police officer. I think for the most part things are rare. Um, I have done some research into it. Most police officers never even pull their gun in their entire career. Um, but that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because when it comes to something like this has much more to do with perception than it does with reality, whatever that is. We see police officers the way we see them, the way we have encountered them. And I'm sure they're the same way with us. And when something like this happens, if nothing else, we have to wonder what went wrong. There are people today who are saying we need to disband the entire police force. Perhaps not with a whole lot of thought. Obviously, if we completely disbanded the entire police force, well, I guess the military would come in. I would hope that none of us want the military coming in. None of us want the National Guard or the Army um, to have to restore order if something were to happen, something big were to happen. And yet at the same time, we look at police officers who can't be fired because the unions are so strong, or because there's certain laws protecting them that even when everybody within the that particular precinct is aware that a police officer is a bad cop, they can't do anything about it. I think we all know on some level that the system has some real problems, and we're not sure what to do about it. And so at times like this, we just call for, well, let's just destroy it. Let's take it down. Obviously, the solution is a little more complex, and I think everyone knows that. We have a tendency to generalize everyone. This is going for cops right now, and it's going for protesters. Some people see all cops as evil and killers, even though of course they're not. The vast majority of cops have never killed anyone. We see protesters as being rioters. Some people do. They lump all protesters into the group of people that are destroying things, setting things on fire. And rather obviously they're not. The vast majority are not. I live here in Portland, and I have seen almost nothing but peaceful protests. Yes, we had some things happen the first couple of days. And yes, around the country, some pretty unfortunate things have happened. But for the most part, they have been very peaceful. And thinking that all protesters are rioters, however you want to define that, or that all cops are bad, but both are ridiculous, and I think most people are aware of that. I think what's most difficult right now is the perception that we are forming about each other and about ourselves, lumping everyone into groups. But, and I have nothing to back this up except my own feelings, because I don't think any of us has a fully objective view of reality, of the U.S., of police, of anything. We only have our thoughts and feelings and our own perceptions, our own life experience that fuels those perceptions. But I happen to think that we've come a long way, especially, let's say, for instance, since the 60s. I have seen white people and black people come together in ways that I think some people would have thought impossible. People who grow up in this generation can't imagine what things used to be like. And I saw some of it. I saw some of it. Not as much as you might think. But I grew up in the 80s in Dallas, Texas, and things were pretty good. I had black teachers. I had a myriad of different nationalities going to my school, and maybe it was just my perception. Maybe it was just the way my parents raised me. I don't know. But I felt very much like we'd gotten through most of it. And as we entered the 90s and we started looking at gay people differently, the media, and I don't merely mean the news, but television shows, were presenting people differently, and the perceptions were shifting, and the perceptions toward the police were shifting, and toward racism, and everything really seemed to be doing very well, and then suddenly things have just exploded. And part of it has been cameras. Suddenly we're catching things on cameras we never caught before. And of course, the advent of the Trump administration, which I think has made it appear that we have a lot more racism than I believe we really do. I know a lot of people will disagree with that, but I don't believe it is any different than it was 20 years ago. In fact, I think it's probably a lot better. But they are coming out of the woodworks. You know, we're seeing a lot more of them than we ever did, and I think they were always there. I don't think that ever went away. I don't think prejudice in general will ever go away. It will change, it will morph. We will unfortunately probably always figure out different ways of hating each other, and I don't know why we need that. I don't. But for some reason, we always seem to find something. And the best answer I can come up with is that if you want to combat something like this, especially a social injustice, we have to do it with love. And I know that probably sounds corny, and it probably sounds silly. But we don't get anywhere with force. We never have. It doesn't work. And I'm not, in my opinion, I'm sure some people will disagree with me, I don't feel like like I'm being naive. I simply feel that if you want to create true change in people, you can't do it through law. We can't just say suddenly, okay, racism is illegal. Racism has been illegal since the 60s. Why is it still here? Because you can't do it that way. You cannot point a gun at someone and say, stop being racist. You have to show people not to be racist. And when I say show people, I remember another video I did on racism, and one of the commenters very astutely said, well, this is really about education. And it is. But I'm assuming he did not mean, and I'm assuming most people are aware, that when we say education, we don't simply mean going to school. We don't mean people telling us black people are just as good as white people. Asian people are just as you know, everything is equal and all of this, and men and women and everything. You know, we can say that to people all day. That doesn't make it true. It doesn't convince people. People are convinced by action. People are convinced by behavior. People are convinced by the way that we treat them. And if someone acts in a prejudiced way, and I don't just mean racist, I mean any type of prejudice, if your reaction to them is, stop doing that, stop being that way, you're ignorant, you're stupid, we're not going to get anywhere with that. We've never gotten anywhere with that. All you do is cause a pressure cooker effect. If you say, okay, nobody should say these words, do these things, no one should be this way, or we're going to shame you on social media, that does not affect good change. All that does is make people angry. People who perhaps would have changed their mind if someone had been positive towards them, if someone had tried to show them a better way. If when someone said something horrible to you, you simply smiled at them, and I don't mean take it, but educated them positively. Someone says something horrible and you smile and say, well, that's interesting. Why do you think you feel that way? What do you think's behind that? Or maybe, you know, I used to feel that way, but, you know, I came to realize this and this and this and that. I'm going to tell you guys a story that I hadn't really intended to in this video, but I think it's important. I was watching a news report talking about how Liam Neeson had once admitted to wanting to just beat a black man because of something that had happened. I can't remember what it was. And he said it was when he was younger and he was ignorant about certain things, and obviously he probably didn't know many black people. And someone had done something and he just wanted to beat someone who was like that, you know. And in my opinion, it was an extraordinary thing for him to do, because the reaction to it was bad. Many people said he was a racist. Why? Because he had once had those feelings? That is so stupid, it makes my teeth hurt. The only way that we can understand things is through talking about them and truly understanding them, not through being perfect, not through having always been perfect, not through covering up the bad things that we've done personally or the things that we've done as a society, but through understanding why we feel the way we feel, why other people feel the way they feel. I can't say that I ever had prejudiced feelings towards black people, especially considering my upbringing. But when I was younger, I certainly didn't have a high opinion of gay people. Now, I didn't know any gay people, or at least I didn't know that I knew any gay people. People these days probably wouldn't understand, given the way that everything is now. But back then, gay people didn't admit to being gay, and most people didn't know anything about them. In fact, the most we were taught, just generally, and I don't mean specifically by people, but just by society in general, was that gay people were these weird, perverted people who men who had sex with other men. I'm not even sure we were even that aware of lesbians at that time. It was just, men who had sex with other men. Oh, that's weird. Um, and so that was just what everybody understood, and it was extremely hard to combat that because it wasn't like gay people were going to talk to you and tell you what it was really like, what it was really about. This concept that gay people were just like anyone else, but they were just attracted to men instead of women, I mean, that wasn't even a concept we really understood. In fact, I think the assumption by most people was that gay people were people that were actually heterosexual that were just had weird sexual proclivities. We really genuinely didn't know. And so being brought up very conservative Christian, um, gay people were just these weird people who I didn't really know anything about. And to say that I hated them, no, I can't say I ever hated gay people, and I don't know that I ever knew anyone who would say they hated them either, but they didn't understand them. They didn't know what they were. Uh, Homosexuality was considered a sin to a lot of Christians. Keep in mind, I was part of a religion that thought pretty much everything was a sin. So we have to understand that while homosexuality was considered a sin, so was being divorced. And it's not like you hated divorced people, but you did think they were sinners. You did think there was something wrong with them. And what changed my mind? Meeting gay people. In the early 90s, things started loosening up. People admitted to being gay. I could have actual conversations with them. And my opinion changed rather immediately the moment I actually got to know some and had gay friends and came to understand what it was really all about. And I think the media in the 90s helped a lot. The television shows that presented gay people as just being normal people, just like anyone else who had families and had lives and were just like anyone. I think it would be horrible if I couldn't talk about that. I think it is a deep problem with our society that we now try to hide that. We try to hide any prejudices we've ever had. And in hiding those prejudices, all we do is make them worse because we don't talk about them. We don't understand them. I don't know what the answer is. I don't know how to defeat racism. I don't know how to defeat prejudice. But I do know, or I do believe, that if we want to do that, we have to treat people like good people. This idea of shaming, this idea of treating anyone who uses words we don't like or opinions we don't like as being evil people, as being bad people, it comes to no good. People voted for Donald Trump for a lot of different reasons, and I don't get it. I think the man's an absolute lunatic, and I'm just saying that. I'm sorry. I didn't have a good reaction to him when he was running. I don't have a good reaction to him now. Do I think that everyone that voted for him was racist? No. Do I think that everyone that voted for him is okay with racism? Of course not. I think Trump was seen as an outsider, and if you were a conservative, you certainly weren't going to vote for Bernie Sanders or Hillary Clinton or any of the other Democrats. You were going to vote for the person who appeared to be from outside, who appeared to be fighting the establishment, and I think that's who Trump was to a lot of people. Whatever the case, this isn't about Trump. This isn't about politics. This is about perception. This is about the way we see people. It's the way the left sees the right and the right sees the left, and Christians see non-Christians and non-Christians see Christians. If we want to do this the right way, if we want to truly affect the world in a positive way, screaming and yelling is not the way to do it. And by the way, I'm not saying that that's what these protesters are doing. I'm not. A lot of them are not screaming and yelling. A lot of them are just trying to show their solidarity and trying to affect some positive change, even if they don't know exactly how that change is going to occur. So my challenge to everyone watching this, whether you're from the left or the right, because I'm talking to all of you, I'm talking to everyone. I really see this channel as non-political. I don't see it as a left channel or a right channel at all. But the next time you encounter someone from the other side, if you're someone from the Black Lives Movement who encounters someone you see as a redneck, or someone who's very right-leaning who encounters a protester, talk to them. Actually talk to them. I don't mean yell at them. I don't mean trade barbs. Tell them your feelings, they tell you their feelings, you both growl and go opposite directions. We are all people. And for the most part, we are all reasonable people. Yes, we get emotional. I get emotional. Bad things happen and I have reactions I probably shouldn't have. And I think everyone's in that boat. And that's why I want you to do this. I want you to, if nothing else, and I will try and do it myself, you know, I will have to do it with both sides. I think a lot of my viewers are probably like that too. I think we do tend to be in the middle. I do think we tend to be more centrist. But when you encounter someone who you believe or feel you disagree with, have a really genuine conversation with them. Try to understand how they feel. And don't try to convince them of what you feel. Just try to understand. Because I think if we all did that, if we all actually tried to understand what other people were thinking and feeling and trying to say, I think we might be able to move on to the next level, which is where I thought we were, and I'm not saying we aren't. I'm not saying we aren't. I think the coronavirus has exacerbated everything. It's made everything worse. It's made us all feel a lot more isolated and a lot more separate than we truly are. I think a lot of people are now viewed as racist who are not racist. I think a lot of people are viewed as extreme left-wing lunatics who are not, simply because things like this polarize us. They make us look far more extreme than we really are. And the most important thing, in my opinion, is keeping your perception maybe not neutral. And keep in mind, when I say neutral, I don't mean neutral as opposed to being good or evil. That's not the type of neutrality I'm talking about. I'm talking about remaining open-minded to fellow humans and remembering that they are all human and they all are trying very hard to do the right thing. And if we can assume that about them, then maybe we can find common ground. Because I think we can. I think we have come a long way in the history of our country, in the history of civilization, and in the history of humanity. We have come a long way from a bunch of tribes warring for no reason thousands of years ago over a grain. I'm the Urban Omnist. I hope these words have a positive impact on someone. Thank you.